Standing in my living room that Tuesday evening, helping Jake work through his algebra homework, I had no idea the next 60 seconds would change everything. My phone vibrated on the coffee table with a notification from our family group chat. When I read Dad's message, my chest tightened. Finalized New Year Bahamas resort booking. Confirmed 8 people total. Me, Linda, Brian, Kelly, Tyler, and Sophie. Resort group package maxes at 8. Can't add more without losing the group rate. Flying out December 30th, back January 3rd. Can't wait. I started counting on my fingers. My parents made 2. Brian's family added 4 more, bringing it to 6. Tyler and Sophie made 8. My family of 4 wasn't mentioned at all. 8 plus 4 equals 12, but they had stopped at 8. Sarah walked in from the kitchen, noticed my expression, and I handed her the phone without saying a word. I watched her face change as she read it, following the same emotional progression I'd just gone through. Emma ran in from the kitchen with a flower stuck on her nose. "Daddy, the cookies are almost ready." She stopped when she saw us. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart," I said, even though it wasn't true. Jake had already seen the screen. "Is that about Grandpa's trip?" he asked carefully. Emma's eyes lit up. "Are we going to the beach with Grandpa?" The question hung in the air. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that she wasn't invited to a family vacation? "Grandpa's trip is for Uncle Brian's family this time," I said slowly. Emma's face fell. "Why can't we go?" Jake, who had been quietly doing the math, spoke with simple clarity. "But Grandpa, Grandma, Uncle Brian, Aunt Kelly, Tyler, and Sophie, that's 6. If we go too, it's 10. So they picked Tyler and Sophie instead of us." He wasn't accusing anyone. He was just stating facts, which somehow made it worse. My 10-year-old had said out loud what I'd been trying not to think. They had made a choice. After the kids were asleep, I sat alone in my office and opened the family group chat history, scrolling back to October. I needed to understand when this decision had been made and how we'd been so completely left out. October 15th. Brian wrote, "Mom, Dad, been thinking about New Year. Kids have been through a lot with the career transition. Would love to do something special. Found a Bahamas resort deal about $400 per person, but that's more than we can manage right now." The request was unspoken but obvious. October 18th, Dad replied, "Brian, your mom and I want to make this happen. Consider it an early Christmas gift for Tyler and Sophie." $4,500 times 4 people, $18,000. That's what my parents were spending on Brian's family. October 22nd, Mom wrote, "Just talked to the resort. They have a group package for 6 to 8 people. Why don't your dad and I come too? Make it a real family trip." That was the moment someone should have mentioned my name. Someone should have asked if we wanted to come, or looked at options for 10 people instead of 8. But no one did. The conversation just moved forward without us, as if we weren't part of the family at all. I kept scrolling through weeks of planning messages I'd never seen, watching excitement build for a trip I'd only just learned about. No one asked if we had plans. In this version of events, we simply didn't exist. One detail kept bothering me: Brian's explanation about financial hardship. I opened LinkedIn and checked his recent activity. December 10th, photo at a hotel ballroom networking event. Building relationships and growing the business. December 3rd, expensive steak dinner. Closed a promising partnership today. December 28th, premium sports bar seating. Work hard, play hard. Go Pats. I switched to Instagram. December 14th, his Corvette. Sunday drive therapy. December 7th, harbor cruise. Ended the week right. Career transition. Tough times. Supposedly unable to afford a vacation, yet he could afford events, fine dining, premium tickets, maintaining a sports car, and weekend cruises. The numbers only made sense if one factor was added:
Our parents were paying for everything. I opened an Excel file I'd been keeping for a year, 2 years of notes labeled Family Interactions 2023-2024. Thanksgiving 2023. Dad said he was too stressed to host us. A week later, he hosted Brian's family. When I asked about it, he claimed Brian's oven was broken. I later found out that wasn't true. Easter 2024. Mom asked me to buy Tyler a $300 Easter basket. I sent a $50 gift card. Her response, "That's all you make? 6 figures, Marcus?" Jake's 10th birthday, June 12th. Dad said he had a work conflict and couldn't come. That same day, he drove 2 hours to Tyler's soccer tournament. August, Brian asked to borrow $15,000. I asked for a business plan. He stopped responding. Dad later called and said I was being difficult with family. The pattern was clear. Brian's needs came first. His kids were always the priority. My family was expected to understand, stay quiet, and accept second place. Over the next week, the family group chat filled with excitement while I stayed silent. Brian posted about Tyler watching sea turtle videos nonstop. Mom replied about packing sunscreen for our grandbabies. Kelly shared photos of Tyler and Sophie in new swimsuits. Mom called them beautiful and said she couldn't wait to see them splash. Then came T-7 days. Mom listed sand buckets, floaties, snorkel sets, everything for Tyler and Sophie. Everything. I read that message sitting in my car at work, feeling something cold settle in my chest. That evening, Emma walked past my office while I stared at my phone. "Daddy, are you okay?" I closed it quickly. "Just work stuff, sweetheart." But it wasn't work. It was knowing her grandparents were planning an elaborate vacation for her cousins and couldn't even say her name. Tuesday, Christmas Eve, 3 p.m. Mom sent me a private text. "Marcus, honey, could you water our plants while we're in the Bahamas? Key under the mat. You're such a lifesaver. Have a nice, quiet week at home." A nice, quiet week at home. She assumed I was free, assumed I had no plans, never asked, just decided. I replied, "Sure, Mom," and put the phone down. I sat there in silence for 5 minutes, feeling something shift, cold, clear, and certain. Then I picked up my phone and searched Luxury Dubai Resorts New Year Packages. 10 minutes later, Sarah walked into my office and stopped when she saw my laptop. I turned the screen toward her. Burj Al Arab, Dubai, New Year Family Package, December 30th through January 4th. 2-bedroom suite, Kids Club, Ski Dubai, Desert Safari, New Year's Eve Gala with Burj Khalifa fireworks, private beach, butler service. Sarah sat down slowly. "They're spending $18,000 on Brian's family," I said calmly, "for a trip he says he can't afford, and our kids weren't invited." "This is about revenge," she asked carefully. "No," I said, "this is about showing Jake and Emma they matter, about teaching them that their worth doesn't depend on someone else deciding who gets included." We left it there that night, but Christmas evening, after the kids were asleep, we sat at the kitchen table with the laptop between us. "Walk me through it again," Sarah said. $4,500 per person, 4 people, $18,000 for Brian. We had $87,000 in savings and a combined income of $230,000. We were stable. We had planned responsibly for years, and we were excluded. Sarah scanned the details. "What's included?" 2-bedroom suite, kids club, indoor skiing, desert safari, New Year's Eve Gala with Burj Khalifa fireworks, private beach, butler service. "Jake's been asking when we'll take a real vacation," she said quietly. "Emma still talks about the beach Grandma promised her 2 years ago." "This isn't a beach," I said, "but it's better." "Are you going to tell your parents?" "No. They didn't ask if we had plans. They assumed. I'll let them keep assuming." "That's fair," Sarah said, smiling slightly. They taught you about priorities. You learned. Our kids deserve this, she added, not because it's expensive, because we're choosing them first. I hovered over reserve now. My phone buzzed. Dad texted, Marcus, we're leaving Sunday morning. Plant key under the mat. Thanks for helping while we're making family memories in the Bahamas. Making family memories. I looked at Sarah. She nodded. Book it. I clicked. Confirmation appeared. Your extraordinary Dubai experience awaits. Reservation confirmed. I didn't reply to Dad. He taught me that family comes first. He just never clarified which family he meant. I had. The morning after Christmas, we sat Jake and Emma down at the breakfast table. Their expressions moved from curiosity to shock to pure excitement in a...
And I had said yes. When she asked if I was sure about what we were doing, I said absolutely, and I meant it. Every message in the group chat, every excited update about Tyler and Sophie, every reference to grandbabies that left out my children only confirmed that we had made the right decision. That night, around 10 o'clock, when I should have been asleep before our early departure, Mom sent me a private message. She explained that she'd left plant watering instructions on the kitchen counter and asked me to stop by twice while they were gone. She ended by telling me to have a nice quiet week at home, as if it were already settled, as if she had decided how my time would be spent. I typed back 7 words. Have a great trip, Mom. I didn't correct her assumption. I didn't mention Dubai, flights, or hotels shaped like sails. I sent the message, put my phone down, and felt something settle in my chest, cold, steady, and calm. 24 hours later, we were gone. The alarm went off at 4:30 Sunday morning. The house was dark as I loaded suitcases into the SUV. Jake and Emma were sleepy but too excited to complain, bundled in the back seat with travel pillows and blankets. Sarah drove while I watched Boston wake up around us, knowing that by the time the sun fully rose, we'd already be in the air. Logan Airport at 5:30 a.m. had that quiet sense of motion, people heading somewhere with purpose. At the Emirates counter, our passports were processed quickly. When the agent saw our destination, she smiled. Dubai for New Year, you're gonna love it. Business class confirmed, gate C42. The boarding passes had gold Emirates logos. The kids were handed amenity kits they opened immediately, finding sleep masks, socks, coloring books, and small toiletries that made them feel important. By 6:45, we were in the Emirates Premium Lounge. Jake and Emma were at the play area, Sarah was reading, and I stood by the windows watching the A380 being prepared. That's when I took the photo. Jake and Emma silhouetted against the glass, the plane's tail behind them, sunrise coloring the sky. I wrote the caption carefully, starting a new adventure, teaching my kids that family creates its own traditions. I added hashtags about family first in Dubai. I hovered for a moment. Sarah came up behind me and asked if I was really doing this. I said, they posted 19 updates about the beach. This is one photo. I posted it, made it public, and immediately switched my phone to airplane mode. Sarah asked if I was going to watch the reactions. I told her not for 14 hours. Whatever was happening in the Nassau group chat could wait until we were already in Dubai, until the decision couldn't be undone. The flight was everything promised and more. Business class pods turned into flatbeds. The crew gave the kids pajamas, slippers, and stuffed camels. Emma asked if she really got to keep hers. When the attendant said yes, she held it like something precious. Jake discovered his seat became a bed and declared it the best plane ever. After takeoff came meals, ice cream sundaes for the kids, and an entertainment system with over 1,000 movies. Their excitement made nearby passengers smile. Mid-flight, with Jake and Emma asleep and Sarah dozing, I couldn't rest. I imagined what was happening in Nassau, my family landing, checking in, someone seeing my post, realizing I wasn't home watering plants. I turned off airplane mode. At first, nothing. Then, everything. 62 text messages, 29 missed calls, Instagram exploding with reactions. I scrolled in order,
watching panic unfold. Mom at 9:15, Marcus, where are you going? Mom at 9:30, all caps, Marcus, answer your phone. Dad at 9:45, call me immediately. Brian at 10, profanity included. Mom at 10:30, you're supposed to be watching our house. Dad at 11:15, we need to talk now. Brian at noon, way to ruin our family vacation. There were dozens more. I read them calmly. Sarah woke and asked how bad it was. About as I expected. Are you going to respond? Not until we land. I put the phone back on airplane mode. Whatever they were feeling, they'd sit with it for another 6 hours. I looked at Jake and Emma sleeping with their stuffed camels. They didn't know about messages or drama. They just knew they were chosen. Somewhere over the Atlantic, my family in the Bahamas was realizing I wasn't available, wasn't waiting. They were learning that exclusion has consequences, that silence can be an answer, that when you don't invite someone to your table, they might build their own. The plane descended towards Dubai. The city appeared like a living circuit board. Then the Burj Khalifa rose into view, light cascading down its sides. Emma said it looked like a spaceship city, and she wasn't wrong. Immigration was efficient. Outside, a driver held a sign with our name and hotel logo. The drive along Sheikh Zayed Road showed skyscrapers wrapped in LED displays. Then we crossed a causeway and the Burj Al Araf appeared, glowing in gold and purple. Emma asked if that was really our hotel. The driver smiled and said it was the most luxurious hotel in the world. In the lobby, a man introduced himself as Rashid, our personal butler. The private elevator opened directly into our suite, 2,200 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows, the gulf stretching beyond. The kids' room had bunk beds and a PlayStation 5. The bathroom had a jacuzzi larger than most hotel rooms. Emma spun slowly and asked, "Is this really ours?" Rashid corrected her gently. It was our suite. Later that night, after the kids fell asleep, I turned my phone on. Messages flooded in again. Dad demanded to know where I was. Brian was furious. Dad threatened to call the police, which actually made me laugh. Sarah asked if I was going to call them. "Tomorrow," I said. The next morning, breakfast was served high above the city. French toast arrived dusted with edible gold. Emma laughed and said she was eating gold. I took a photo and posted it. Breakfast in Dubai, teaching the kids they're worth their weight in gold. Some traditions you create yourself. Support poured in from extended family. The story began to change. 10 minutes later, Dad called. I answered calmly. He demanded explanations. I gave facts. Dubai, family vacation. He said Mom assumed I would be home. I pointed out she hadn't asked. When he blamed space limits, I asked whether it was really space or priorities. 8-person package, we were 10. They could have chosen differently. Silence followed. He called my behavior inappropriate. I asked what Brian was struggling with. The conversation unraveled from there. And when he finally asked why I hadn't invited them on our trip, the question hung there, absurd and revealing, before I repeated it back to him slowly, making sure I understood exactly what he was saying.
That was the moment I delivered the line I'd been working toward, the one that reflected his own reasoning back to him. "I didn't exclude you, Dad. I just didn't include you. There's a difference." The silence on the line lasted longer this time. When he finally said it was the same thing, I asked if that was also his logic for the Bahamas. He insisted it was different. I asked how. He said Brian needed the trip. I replied that my children needed to feel valued, and that we had both made decisions based on our priorities. He called me childish. I said maybe I was, but at least Jake and Emma wouldn't grow up wondering why their grandfather didn't care about them. He said that wasn't fair. I agreed, and said excluding them wasn't fair either. He told me we'd have a serious discussion when they got back. I said I looked forward to it, then ended the call. Sarah watched me for a long moment afterward. Her expression held equal parts concern and pride. She said one word, brutal. I told her it was necessary. She didn't argue. That afternoon, we went to Ski Dubai, which remains one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. We walked from triple-digit heat into a climate-controlled ski slope where real snow fell from above and penguins waddled inside a special enclosure. Emma was completely absorbed by the penguins, kneeling to let one inspect her boot while I filmed her whispering to it like they were sharing secrets. Jake surprised everyone by skiing naturally, making it down the beginner's slope without falling, while the instructor praised his balance. I took a photo of him at the bottom, arms raised in victory, and posted it with a caption about moments you can't put a price on, adding in parentheses that we had anyway. Sarah laughed when she read it. New Year's Eve arrived with the energy that always comes before a celebration. By 6 p.m., we were dressed formally. Emma wore a gold dress that made her look suddenly older. Jake wore a small suit he'd resisted at first, but now carried proudly. Sarah wore an evening gown that stopped me in my tracks. I wore a rented tuxedo, chosen specifically for this night. I took a family photo in the suite, the Burj Khalifa visible through the window behind us, city lights forming an almost unreal backdrop. Then I sat down to write what would be the final post of the trip. It took 10 minutes and 3 full rewrites to get it right. I wrote about what the year had taught me, about family being defined not by blood, but who shows up, who chooses you, who makes you a priority instead of an afterthought. I mentioned my kids asking why they weren't invited, and my answer, we don't wait for invitations, we create our own magic. I thanked Sarah for believing in this, told Jake and Emma they were loved, valued, and enough. I ended by saying worth isn't measured by someone else's exclusion. Sarah read it over my shoulder and said it would explode. I agreed. When she said my family would lose their minds, I pointed out they already had. One more post wouldn't change that. I posted it. 2 hours later, we were at the Sky View Bar, countdown clocks visible, the Burj Khalifa lit across the water as crews prepared for midnight. Jake and Emma had sparkling cider and champagne flutes. Sarah and I had the real thing. Emma declared it the best New Year ever, with the certainty only a 7-year-old can have. My phone vibrated constantly in my pocket, notifications stacking up. Sarah asked if I was going to check it. I said tomorrow. Whatever was happening online could wait until after midnight, after we counted down together and made this moment ours. The countdown began, voices from around the world joining in. Emma insisted we count too. We did. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I looked at my family, smiling, happy, secure, exactly what I wanted. Happy New Year rang out as fireworks exploded, gold and silver cascading down the Burj Khalifa in patterns matched to music. My phone kept buzzing, but I didn't reach for it. I stood with my actual family and watched the sky light up over Dubai. Dad had taught me that family requires sacrifice. He was right. He just never explained what you should sacrifice, or for whom. I had chosen to give up his approval, his comfort, and his assumptions about my availability. I traded his peace of mind for my children's happiness, his vacation harmony for their sense of being chosen. It felt like a fair exchange. We landed at Logan on Friday afternoon. Jake and Emma were exhausted but glowing with the kind of energy that comes from experiencing something extraordinary. Jake wore his Burj Khalifa t-shirt and asked when we could go back before we even cleared customs. Emma clutched Mr. Waddles, the stuffed camel, and asked if he could come to school for show and tell. By 5:30 we were home. The house was exactly as we left it. The plants were healthy thanks to our neighbor Linda. My phone showed 57 new messages and 33 missed calls. Dad's message was direct. They'd arrived the next day at 11 and we needed to talk. Mom's was more emotional, asking for a face-to-face conversation. Brian's was resentful, accusing me of making their vacation about myself. One message from Aunt Carol told me not to let them guilt me. I saved that one. Sarah asked if I was ready for tomorrow.
I said I had 18 hours to prepare. Not nearly enough, but it would have to be. They arrived exactly on time. Dad and Mom stood on our doorstep, Bahamas tans fading under visible stress. Jake and Emma were at Sarah's mother's house. They didn't need to witness this. The living room turned into a standoff. They sat on the couch. We took the armchairs opposite them. Dubai Souvenirs sat nearby, impossible to ignore. Dad started with my Instagram post, asking how I could make them look like bad parents. I said I hadn't mentioned them by name. Mom cried, talking about calls from relatives questioning favoritism. When she said Cousin Jen told her someone needed to stand up to them, I quietly agreed. Dad stood up, angry now, demanding how I could accuse them of being unsupportive. I responded with dates and events: Jake's birthday, Thanksgiving, Easter. He tried to defend each one separately. I kept going, showing the pattern they couldn't deny when viewed together. He called me selfish and said the Dubai trip proved it. I asked what the difference was between me spending $18,000 on my family and him spending the same on Brian's family. That's when Brian and Kelly walked in unannounced. Brian insulted me. I pointed out I hadn't known they were included. Dad said this was a family matter, apparently one that included them but not my kids in the Bahamas. Brian attacked the money issue. I asked about the gap between his claims of struggle and his public posts. When he tried to explain it as networking, I asked him to name one client. He couldn't. I produced the timeline I'd kept, 2 years of documented interactions. Each incident alone could be explained. Together, they showed clear favoritism. Brian's kids came first. Mine were treated as secondary. Mom cried harder when I told her Emma once asked why Grandma loved her cousins more. I said I still didn't have a good answer. Dad demanded I delete the posts and apologize. I refused. Brian accused me of tearing the family apart. I asked him where he'd been for my kids' milestones. Mom said she didn't remember unequal gifts at Christmas, proving my point. Dad gave an ultimatum: apologize and delete the posts, or be cut off. Before I could respond, Sarah stood. She said if that was the choice, we'd choose not being part of this family. She talked about how valued the kids felt in Dubai, not because of luxury, but because they mattered. I stood too. I told Dad he was right about family coming first. I was just choosing mine. I opened the door. The conversation was over. They left slowly. When the door closed, Sarah asked if I was okay. I realized I was, lighter than I'd been in years. 3 months later, things shifted. Mom admitted she couldn't justify the imbalance. Dad offered something close to an apology. Brian found a job. Payments stopped. One afternoon in April, I saved a photo album from Dubai. The file name was Our Family Traditions, in caps. Because sometimes loving your kids means setting boundaries, and sometimes choosing your family means choosing them first.